Hey again, this is Mr. Marlowe. Today we're going to talk about solving one operation equations. Those are simple equations where you have a variable and there's just one thing going on with it, something being added or subtracted or multiplied or divided. But our illustration here is of a seesaw, and call it balancing Bob. The seesaw, the pivot point here represents the equal sign of an equation. And an equation is balanced. This side perfectly balances this side. They're equal. And the idea is that if we want to change one side of an equation, we can, but only if we do the same thing on each side. So if I want to put this on the seesaw, okay, and I want it over here, I can't just do that, because if I do, it's going to fall. But if I do the exact same thing on this side, everything stays balanced. And that's the concept that we're going to use when we solve these equations, keeping in mind that we start completely balanced. And if we want to take something off of this side where our variable is, we have to take it off of this side. Or what we're really going to be doing is adding things that cancel out. But just keep in mind as we do these examples, the idea of balancing Bob. We want to keep our balance. So what we do on one side, we do on the other, and we stay balanced. So let's go over here and take a look at some examples. And what we're going to do is we're going to use that balancing Bob concept and inverse operations. Okay? So we're going to do something like, say we started with a plus 6 equals negative 9. Okay, so run through the process. Right now, Bob is balanced. We got A, we got an equal sign. That's our balance point. But the one thing I didn't mention about Bob is Bob's a little paranoid. Bob does not like having things around him on the balance beam, on the seesaw. So he wants things to be moved, just like in the equation. We're happily balanced, but right now we've got this plus 6, and the variable doesn't like that. Well, if you remember from the previous video, if you haven't seen it, it's the one titled Inverse Operations. We can cancel plus 6 by doing the inverse of plus 6. The inverse is minus 6. Okay? Inverse is cancel. But y'all remember balancing Bob over there. If I do something here, I throw off my balance unless I do it right here. All right? I've done the same thing on each side of the equation. On this side, I now have 6 minus 6. That cancels out. They're inverse operations. And it's because, again, that gives me 0. And A plus 0, or even A minus 0, is A. Okay? Now, all I have to do is take my calculator and carefully do negative 9 minus 6. One of the things I tell my students is, be careful. You've done the hard part. Don't mess the calculation up. Because if you mess the calculation up, it'd have been just like you didn't know how to do the problem. All right? And that gives me a negative 15. Negative 9 minus 6, okay, negative 15. All right? And just so you know, you could, if you needed to, turn around and check and replace A with negative 15 and then plus 6 and see what you get. And that does give you negative 9, so it checks. So you can always check your work by taking the number you think the variable equals and replacing the variable with that number and run it through in your calculator. So that's one type of solving an equation with one operation. Anytime you have an addition, and that's all with a variable, all you got to do is subtract that same number on both sides. Okay, so let's take a look at another one. We've done one where there was addition. And now here we go. We're still balanced. We're balanced right here on the equal sign. Like I said, keep it balancing Bob in mind. We want him to stay nice and balanced. Okay? But he also, the variable, doesn't want anything else on his side of the equal sign. You know, I don't know if you noticed with balancing Bob over there, he doesn't have any arms and legs. He's always afraid somebody's going to push him off. So he wants everything on the other side, so he doesn't have to worry about it. Same thing with the variable. Well, 4y means 4 times y. Again, go back to the inverse video. The inverse of multiply is to divide. So we're going to divide by 4 to get rid of the multiplying by 4. Well, again, balancing Bob. We weren't dividing originally. So that means we're not balanced anymore unless we divide over here. Okay, once again, we're now balanced. 4 divided by 4 is 1. And 1 times y, or y divided by 1, is y. And then just do the calculation and you're good. -6. And like I said, you could turn around and put in the -6 for y and multiply. But there you go. Anytime you have a variable being multiplied by a number, all you got to do is divide that number on both sides and you're good. All right? 2 more. All right? If we have, say, we'll do an x this time, -9 is supposed to equal 26. Okay? Well, again, we're balanced. Everything's good. But like I said, variable's paranoid. Doesn't like having anything on its side of the equation, just like Bob. But we got to stay balanced. The inverse of -9, just like the inverse of adding was subtracting, the inverse of subtraction is addition. So I'm going to add a 9. But again, Bob, out of balance, not good. Whoa, stop. But we can balance it. So we do +9 on this side. Back into balance. Everything's cool. Inverse of -9 is +9. That gives you, that cancels out, giving you 0. X minus 0, or even x plus 0 is just x. And over here, you just got to make sure you do the calculation right. And 26 plus 9 is 35. You can check it if you want. 35 minus 9. All right? So anytime you have a number being subtracted from your variable, you just add that number. Make sure you do it on both sides, and you're good. All right, actually, I want to do 2 more real quick. One of them is something like this. Okay? And that's a G, but it does kind of look like a 9. So let's fix that. We'll make it another variable like n. Okay? Again, we are balanced on the equal sign right there, but n has something going on with it. So n over something, it's a division problem. Inverse of division, multiplication. So I'm going to multiply both sides by the same -3. And that is very, very important. Look back up here. We divided by the same number we were multiplying by. It's not a -4 here. We're dividing by 4. The number divided by itself. This was a -3. The inverse is times -3. But we got to stay balanced. Remember, balancing Bob. Okay? So if I multiply here, I fell off my balance unless I multiply here. All right? We got -3 divided by -3. Inverse cancels out, leaving you with just n, because 1 times n is just n. And over here, negative and a negative are going to give you a positive 36. Okay, that covers most of it. I want to do one more thing because sometimes, especially here at Hillcrest Middle School and High School, they really have issues if we have a problem like this. if we c minus negative 5. We have that double sign thing. We've talked about that before. It's really simple. You just have to remember that subtracting a negative is the same thing as adding a positive. And now we're just like the addition problem we did before. We're adding, inverse of that is subtraction. You want to stay balanced, so you do it on both sides. 5 minus 5 cancels out, and c equals 1. So I hope that was helpful. We're solving one operation equations, and you do them the same way each time. The inverse of whatever's going on with the variable, do it on both sides to keep Bob balanced, and you got it. So appreciate you watching, and I do hope it was helpful. Thanks.